Right, welcome to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. Do not be alarmed. Alright, this video and the article itself is coming from Bounding Into Comics. Now, they are not the actual source of this. You read the title, like it says, Rumour Noah Hawley's Star Trek film is dead in space. However, this actually comes from comments by Simon Pegg recently, which are now being kind of, I guess, retroactively fitted into other people's sources. Simon Pegg recently came out and basically said, I don't know anything about another Star Wars film. Which now people are then going, what? Noah Hawley's film is dead. It's not happening. My sources told me this. So just disregard like the whole thing here. But it would seem that Noah Hawley's film is actually dead. Surprisingly. And it also seems as well that Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek film is dead as well. I don't understand what's going on with Star Trek. You'd have thought they'd be able to get off the ground by now, but apparently not. Who knows? Let's get into it, right? So like I said, it says a source close to Bounding Into Comics. I disagree with that. It might be, but ultimately this is all spurned on from Simon Pegg coming out and saying, I've no idea about Star Trek. So their source apparently is detailed that Noah Hawley's reported Star Trek film is dead in the water, or in this case, space. Ha ha ha! He's so punny! Noah Hawley, who created Legion and Fargo on FX, was reported to be working on a new Star Trek film by Deadline back in November, which is true. So when we get a report literally this week that Simon Pegg has no idea about any Star Trek film, that's a bit surprising. Don't you think? So that report indicated that current Star Trek film cast would return, including Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Carl Urban, Simon Pegg, and Zoe Saldana. However, a source tells Bounding Into Comics that the film is now dead as a number of investors have pulled out of the project. Now, I don't know why that would be the case. I think they've all made money. As far as I'm aware, I think they've all made money. But then we also have other space things which haven't done so well, or at least haven't received good critical feedback. You know, i.e. like Star Wars and things. And the reason why I mention Star Wars, they're not comparable, but a studio sees space films in the same light. I know it sounds very strange, but they genuinely do. So, I'm not overly sure why investors would pull out, but I can believe it, just because. Now, not only that, there was a merger, which has kind of seen some of the rights go back to other people and things like that. Now, I don't know whether this affected the film part of it, but I know the series side of it has been somewhat affected, but you know, not massively. Now, like I say, this information comes after Star Trek actor Simon Pegg recently stated he didn't know anything about Hawley's involvement in the Star Trek 4 film. So, like I say, this has all been spun off the back of that. All of it. And I would hazard a guess that a lot of the whole other things, you know, oh, it's dead in the water, it's been cancelled and all this kind of stuff. I would imagine that's just, you know, deduction, right? You've just taken the news from Simon Pegg and gone, oh, well, I deduce that that's probably the case. Because it makes sense. It's a logical conclusion to come to. Now, however, Pegg did note that he thought Hawley had been hired to write something for Star Trek. But he indicated that the current Star Trek film actors would not be involved in that project. So someone's getting the reports wrong. I mean, it's either Deadline or it's Bounding Into Comics or it's Simon Pegg or who knows? Who knows? Ultimately, Deadline's a pretty good source, but they do get it wrong. Of course they do. You know, just like anyone with sources. Sources can say this and it could be in early days negotiations. Who knows? But like I say, this is interesting for a few things. Now, Pegg said, and it was very, very clear, he said, I'm not talking... Pegg was clear that he was talking out of my ass as usual. Not only is this rumour bolstered by Pegg's comments, but it comes amid what appears to be chaos in the Star Trek camp, which is... There's long been rumours of problems with Star Trek. It's not even rumours. I mean, the original cast didn't want to sign on to another film because of money, even though it was, you know, contractually obligated. Lots and lots of crap going on with this Star Trek 4 film. That's why it's been dead in the water for so long. Chris Hemsworth wanted more money. Their contracts had ran out. Universal didn't want to pay it. Fairly certain it's Universal. They didn't want to pay it. Chris Pine wanted more money. They didn't want to pay it. It's just all of this. That's part and parcel of the whole issue here. Now it says, before Deadline reported on Hawley's Star Trek film, Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek film had been making the rounds. However, Tarantino recently indicated that he was stepping away from Star Trek. So what's going on? What is going on? He told Consequence of Sound in December he was steering away from Star Trek. He also noted that he had not even had an official conversation with those guys yet. While Tarantino indicated he was steering away from Star Trek, Pegg believed it was still kind of in the mix. It just sounds like no one knows what's going on. Ultimately, what you can get from this, regardless of what is true and what isn't true, no one knows. There is a great deal of confusion going on with respect to Star Trek. From insiders, outsiders, outlets, sources, no one knows. If Tarantino is literally saying, I'm steering away from Star Trek, I've not had a conversation with those people yet though, and Pegg is like, oh yeah, I believe he's still kind of in the mix, after the fact, it's clear that no one really knows what's going on here. Or it could actually be that Simon Pegg, because he was a writer on a lot of these movies, could be, ladies and gents, that he's got the boot. Because not only does the prospect... Oh, it's Paramount Pictures, not Universal, sorry. Not only does the prospect of Tarantino reinvigorating Star Trek now seem a distant memory, but Paramount Pictures and its parent company, Viacom, seemed to be having troubles controlling a budget for a fourth Star Trek film. Back in August 2018, The Hollywood Reporter reported that both Chris Hemsworth and Chris Pine exited contract negotiations for a fourth Star Trek film. The report indicated that both Pine and Hemsworth walked away from the film over money. They wanted more money. They just wanted more money. Now, a lot of people are like, oh, well, you know, they probably just want more money, just fucking do it, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, fine. But if your star power commands more money, and you are genuinely getting bad rates, then you, yourself, would want more money, wouldn't you? And these films have not exactly been lauded as particularly great. So you've also got to take into account that they need risk payment, i.e., more money just in case it bombs their career, which I think is very, very fair and reasonable, personally. It also noted that Paramount was trying to stick to a tight budget after Star Trek Beyond only grossed $343 million worldwide, the worst performing film since the franchise was rebooted in 2009. So there you go. I mean, look, what can we ascertain from this? He might be getting the boot, personally, I think. You know, he doesn't know anything about Hawley's involvement. He still thinks Tarantino's in the mix, even after Tarantino said he's not. Who knows? Who knows? Noah Hawley would have been a good pick. So would Quentin Tarantino. I stand by that. I like both of those picks. Preference is actually Quentin Tarantino, quite frankly. But I think ultimately it just goes to show that Paramount, Viacom, they don't know what they're doing with this. They genuinely don't know what they're doing with this. You could even just give it to Netflix, right? Because Lost in Space has been doing a good J.J. Abrams lens flare aesthetic Star Trek thing lately. Season 2 was very much... It felt like Star Trek to me, the new ones anyway. You could even just give it to Netflix, just let them crack on with it, to be fair. Because I don't think these movies, they're not working. And I know they've got this Amazon thing with Picard and things like that. You got Discovery on, was it CBS? STD, that's hilarious. For those that don't know, sexually transmitted disease. Like, it's a big joke, isn't it? No one knows what anyone is doing. Is it working? Is it not? Who knows? Who knows? But there you go. That's the latest. No Star Trek film as yet. Rumours, conjecture, outlets, sources. It's all nonsense right now. But I eagerly anticipate getting some good news on this, because I'd like a good Star Trek product. I genuinely would. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I've been Mr. H. Take care.